Welcome to the show, sports fans. This is the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, breaking down District 3 activities week in, week out in the state of Idaho. My name is Brandon Baney, but the guy you all paid to see, and nobody pays anything, it's free 99, is Logan Green, our District 3 expert. Logan, what's up?
Yeah, I wouldn't say anybody is paying to hear this. They probably need to be paid to listen to it. But, we won't get into that. But, yeah, it's crazy what's going on right now. District 3, I was just at a game last night, and I didn't even realize it. It was senior night there. Now, they didn't have any seniors. So, what is senior night with no senior? Anyways, we don't need to get into that conversation. But regardless, it was the final home game of the season for some teams. And it's just kind of crazy that we're already here at that time right now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about talking about kind of different ways of having those like senior nights and things like that. I did see earlier this month at Idaho City High, Logan, they had what was called Snowcoming, where it was like homecoming, but it was for the winter sports. And so like the basketball teams and the wrestlers, and they all kind of had they called it Snowcoming. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they get plenty of it up in Idaho City. So it's a fitting name. It's a fitting name.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, hey, like we said, the show is totally free, right? It doesn't cost you anything. We do ask that if you're watching this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, hit the like button and hit that subscribe button. And that helps us in the big fancy algorithms, and it helps more people see this content. You can also listen to this podcast, of course, audio only at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts, Google, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, etc. And wherever you're downloading this at, just hit subscribe, and then it automatically gets downloaded into your feed every single week. You don't have to go searching for it, because sometimes we record on Wednesday, sometimes we record on Thursday, and that's one less thing you have to worry about. So just subscribe. And so, yeah, here we are, Logan, at the very end of the regular season, to the point now where for girls basketball, the regular season has officially wrapped up for some teams. Boys basketball, we're getting kind of into the stretch drive of conference play. Our first statewide district play-in game, or district tournament game, period, actually happens tomorrow night, Logan, which means later today, I've got to get district brackets posted to the website at IdahoSports.com. Girls district tournament action officially starts tomorrow night. Do you have any idea what the matchup is? This will be a fun trivia time.
Okay, district tournament starts tomorrow night. Is it over here, or is it Eastern Idaho?
East Idaho. Okay,
so it's going to be that 1A Division II tournament, right, from Eastern Idaho that has like 55 teams in it. I mean, the league stretches from Ledor all the way down to like Rockland, right? It is. I'm pretty sure that conference is bigger than some like college conferences, right? In terms of length. That's not true, but jokingly, I heard somewhere that like Owyhee County is bigger than Rhode Island or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong, but just tells you how big. I mean, that's a long drive, right? Ledor to Rockland. I don't know what that is. Is that like 3 hours? Anyways, was that the one? Am I right?
Yes, you are correct. It is the 1A D2 Rocky Mountain Conference, a 9-team behemoth. Of course, the 5A SIC's over here going, yawn. We've got 13 teams. But to answer your second question, Ledor to Rockland is 2 hours and 56 minutes.
Almost 3 hours. But, I mean, the 5A SIC, you're talking the longest drive is Timberline to Middleton, which, I mean, with traffic, it might take you 2 hours and 56 minutes, to be honest. Yeah. Just kidding. It's probably an hour.
So the matchup, Logan, the very first district the very first postseason game is tomorrow night in the thriving metropolis of DuBois, Idaho. The Clark County Bobcats are hosting the Taylor's Crossing Eagles in the 9-versus-8 play-in game to see who advances to the proper double elimination tournament. Do you know where Taylor's Crossing is located, Logan?
It's in Idaho Falls. I know that. And hey, look, I know about Clark or Du Bois. My great friend from college, Tyson Schwartz, is actually the head football coach at Clark County. And so my wife's family actually owns a ranch just up near Humphreys. So the next, past Spencer and up to the next one, like my brother-in-law's dad is actually, or his grandpa, whatever, was the mayor of Spencer. So that little nook of the world, I'm actually a little bit more familiar with than most people might expect. But yeah.
Yeah, I of course, living in Pocatello and traveling to Montana frequently to visit family and friends, we pretty much universally always stop in Du Bois along the way. There's a little gas station right off the interstate. We always stop there, whether it's to stretch our legs or get something to eat or so. I mean, I've been to Du Bois more times than I can count.
Then you need to look for my wife's family's ranch. It's right after the Humphreys exit on the left. Not that that's important to you, but it's there. It exists. But yeah, so it'll be Clark County, Taylor's Crossing, the first postseason. It's that's like the first four, right? Or what do they call it in college basketball when they is that what they call it? The first four when they play in Dayton? So he's like, I don't care who these 2 16 seeds are. I'm watching them. That's what I want. Give it all to me. Give me all the postseason basketball.
Yeah, no doubt. So yes, postseason starts tomorrow statewide. And we will have, once again, every district tournament bracket, 5A all the way down to 1A D2, every single district on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. Stay tuned. Nothing gets going in District 3 until like next week. So we got a little bit of a buffer, but man, with postseason ramping up, we wanted to examine just a couple of conference races that are becoming pretty interesting. And by interesting, we mean convoluted in terms of there's some leagues where it's like, okay, Melba's boys and girls running away with the league. Parma's girls running away with their league. Council boys just won their conference. So, but there's other leagues where it's like, man, I don't know what to make of this. And I don't think that can be any more clearer than the 5A SIC for girls basketball, Logan. It's been a wild ride this year.
Yeah, and I mean, we could have our own show on just this. And I mean, that's what this might evolve into, right? But I tell you what, I mean, it's a mess. But I say that in the best possible way, right? The term mess. When you look at the conference right now, I mean, you have the top dogs, right? You have Boise up at the top. And I think they are the best team, clearly, but they did lose last week. And so that wasn't something I think a lot of people were expecting to see. And so that, people see that, oh, okay, now Boise's beatable. Of course, the conference this year, right, gets their 4 automatic bids and then gets 2 play-ins. So 6 teams are going to leave the SIC and go to the postseason play. 4 straight into the Idaho Center. 2 are going to have to battle in games that I don't know. I don't know if the SIC wins those games just because, and we talked about this last week. I mean, you're going to get 2 really good teams one from the north, one from the east, and those are going to be real tough matchups. I even think, Brandon, I was looking at your article, right? The one on the Max Preps rankings. I think the north has Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls, right? Those are the 2 up there. And I think both of them are in the top 5 of girls teams. Is that right? You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you're going to get more than likely whoever's in the play-in game is going to be playing a quote top 5 team, essentially.
Yeah. So the way this boils down is the 5th place team from District 3 will play the 2nd place team from the north. And then the 6th place team from District 3 will play the 2nd place team from the east. And you've got basically from between East Idaho and the north, you've got 5 teams that are all really good. Lake City, Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene up north, Thunder Ridge, and Rigby from the east. So just looking at those teams, and we're not saying because any of those 5 could be the possible play-in opponent. Just looking at let's go team by team and see how they did against the SIC this year. Coeur d'Alene, beat Eagle 54-31, beat Meridian 71-25, beat Rocky 72-44. So, I mean, that's 3-0 for Coeur d'Alene against three. I mean, Eagle and Rocky are right there, right near the top of the league standings. And Coeur d'Alene
Rocky's the one that beat Boise, and they
Yeah.
beat them and Coeur d'Alene beat them by 30 points. Like that, it's tough. It's tough. I don't think anybody's going to get out. If you don't get one of those top four, I think you're done.
Yeah. Lake City beat Boise 73-62. Now that was way back season opener. They beat Mountain View 68-43. They beat 77-37. They beat Rocky 65-29. They beat Eagle 57-39. So again, you're talking about Lake City 5-0 versus the SIC this year, and really only one close game against Boise. You look at Post Falls. How did they do this year? They beat Rocky 51-46. They beat Eagle 60-50. They beat Meridian 65-31. Mountain View 60-51. Bora 76-23. Middleton 75-58. So Post Falls went 6-0 against the SIC. A lot of close games in there. So if you're a District 3 team, you're probably cheering for Post Falls. Bad news is Post Falls has been boat raced by Lake City and Coeur d'Alene so far in all of their matchups.
Yeah.
So Post Falls getting to the play-in game is unlikely, but that might be a pathway. The teams from East Idaho, Thunder Ridge obviously hasn't lost yet this year, right? They're 20-0 on the season, the only undefeated team left in 5A girls hoops. How did they do against the SIC this year? They beat Bora 69-27. They beat Eagle 53-46. So they went 2-0 against the SIC, and Eagle pushed them, right? It was a somewhat close game. And then finally, Rigby. This year is currently lost to Hawaii by 10, 71-61. And that might be it for the SIC. So Rigby is the one. They're 0-1 against the SIC this year. Hawaii beat them by 10. So I guess if you're an SIC team and you're playing in the playing game, you're hoping to see either Rigby or Post Falls, essentially.
Right.
But even then, it's not going to be easy.
No, there's no easy matchup. And so again, it's pertinent to get one of those top four bids. But Brandon, if we look at the standings, I mean, it's a mess. So 6 teams. Let's just go with the 6, right? 6 teams are going to make it. I think we can all agree that Boise's probably going, right? Boise did lose to Rocky Mountain this week, which was, I think a little bit of an upset, but not really on paper. I mean, they're only a game apart right now. But we've talked a lot about maybe Timberline being right there and then Hawaii making some noise. But Eagle sits at 9-2 as well. Then you look towards the bottom, and there's teams at the bottom that have losing records that I think are better than those records show, that are going to get better as they go along. I mean, CUNA beat Mountain View this week, and then Middleton last night. We were there for that game. Middleton absolutely plowed through CUNA. You look at like Middleton. Let's just look at them for a second. I'm just going. I've seen them play a lot this year. We've done a lot of their games. Just from what we've seen, they beat Eagle early in the season, right? That's the 9-2 Eagle squad, right? That's currently sitting tied for second in the league. They beat them. They lost to them last week, on Saturday by 4 points. Middleton's other games, they lost to Rocky Mountain by 8 points. They lost to Capital by 1. They went to overtime against Mountain View, a game that if they could hit any free throws, they would have won that game. They lose that by 6 points. They lose, they lost to Hawaii. I couldn't remember the last one. They lost to Hawaii by 5 points. That's a team, they're so young. They have a lot of young players, and I said this to somebody last night, whether it's Middleton, CUNA, Capital, somebody in that conference in district is going to win a game that on paper they should not win. It's going to happen. You can take me to the bank on it. I'll eat crow all day, but somebody is going to win a game that they should not win. Now I'm not saying that's going to be in a state qualifying matchup. it might be in the first round, and then that team ends up losing the rest of their games and does not go to state. It could happen in that do or die opening round, right? And then maybe that team gets to that next round and then they do not win another game there. I'm not saying I'm not saying Bora, who hasn't won a game, is going to somehow make it to the state tournament. I'm saying somebody is going to win a game that they should not. And it's going to be over one of those top tier teams, and it's going to make things interesting in the SIC tournament. And, I think that it's going to be a Middleton, a CUNA, a Mountain View, that one of those is going to beat somebody they should not beat.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the league standings right now, so Boise lost to Rocky by 3 on last Saturday, 45-42. They turn around and beat Timberline in their regular season finale last night by 3, 48-45. With that, Boise finishes the regular season 11-1 in the SIC, 18-2 overall. They've got the 1 seed locked down. Then you've got this 3-way tie for second, Logan. Owyhee, Rocky, Eagle, all 9-2, and they all beat each other. So how do you solve this tiebreaker? Rocky beat Owyhee, but lost to Eagle. Eagle beat Rocky, but lost to Owyhee. And Owyhee lost to Eagle and beat Rocky. They all, it's like the circle you love pointing to. This team beat this team and this team. And we bring this up because with this new 13-team bracket, only the top 3 teams receive first-round buys into the double elimination, which means one of those 3, Owyhee, Rocky, and Eagle, is going to have to play Bora or Nampa in a do-or-die game. Now, they're probably favored to win that, but still, it's one extra step they have to take.
Yeah, and it's just, you see it all the time in postseason basketball where it happens. Upsets happen. You know what? I think that both teams are pretty – whoever gets that 4th bid, I would feel pretty comfortable winning that first game, whether it be Nampa or Bora. And even like a Centennial, I think you should be okay, but you don't want to slip up and get a Capital, a Middleton, or a Mountain View. I think that is not what anybody wants in the first round. And we're going to see some of those, right? Potentially, we don't have the bracket, right? We have the volleyball bracket to kind of base it off of, but some of those teams that we mentioned that are in the middle, somebody's going to knock another one out, in that play-in round. And it's going to be a tough way to end a season for somebody right there in the middle.
Yeah. So the way it's looking right now, I mean, I don't know who that 4th seed is. I don't know how that tiebreaker gets sorted out between Owyhee, Rocky, and Eagle. They all have one final SIC game to play. They're all favored to win. So, you're looking at, but that 4th place team would play Bora. 4 would play 13. 5 would play 12. That would be Timberline. Timberline's locked in as the 5 seed, and that would be Timberline against Nampa. Then you would have 6 against 11. That currently would be Mountain View and Centennial. Then you'd have 7 and 10, Capital and Meridian. And then the 8 and 9, Logan. And I think this is pretty much a done deal. I mean, depending on what happens, but right now it would be CUNA and Middleton meeting in that 8-9 matchup. And those are 2 of your dark horses. One of them is going to get knocked out right away.
Yeah. And those 2 teams play, I think you're right, Brandon, because I think Middleton plays Meridian this week. And if they win, they'll move to 5-7. CUNA's locked in at 5-7. And then if Capital falls, they're 5-7. And Capital has the tiebreaker over Middleton because they won that game by 1 point. So yeah, it's probably going to be Middleton and CUNA. And you know what? Middleton has won that game twice this year, and they looked really good last night. And that would be a tough draw, I think, for CUNA because they have played so well recently, right? They've played well in some of these games, but man, yeah, like I said, I think somebody's going to win a game they shouldn't, but I believe, right, if the winner of that game just goes on and plays Boise in the first round, would that be where they would line up?
Yes, provided one of the lower seeds doesn't.
So it resets itself. It's not like this. It's not a direct path. It's low seed against Boise.
Right. So,
Got
if Bora as the 13-1, they would play Boise right away. So then let's examine the other side of the coin. If we think one of those teams, I think the 4 bids, Boise's got one, and then the other 3 auto bids, it could be any number of teams. But if we're talking about, which one of those teams that's in the quote unquote top 4 right now that we think is not going to get one of those auto bids or might, find themselves on the wrong end of it. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Hawaii. Hawaii is.
Oh, really? You think it's
Yes.
Hawaii? I would say Eagle.
So, and here's my thing with Eagle. Okay, you look at Eagle and you're like, they're 9-2 in league, but they're like 10-10 overall, right? And you're like, man, and their point per game and their what they've scored is 45.10 points per game, and they've allowed 45.05. So that is a plus minus of 0.05. So they're like right at even, which you're 10-10. But then when you look, and I didn't realize this until Eagles coach Jeremy Monroe sent me an email last week. He goes, I keep waiting for you to email me and ask me, what I think of the 5A hierarchy, because look at who Eagle has played this year, Logan. They've played obviously Rocky twice. They've played Boise. They've played Hawaii twice. But then outside of that, they've played Lake City, Post Falls, and Coeur d'Alene, and Thunder Ridge. I mean, their Eagle is the team that could. Coach Monroe is the guy that could tell me, hey, I've seen every big player except Rigby in person, and here's what I think. So he was kind of joking about that when he sent me that email, but it's true. Eagle has played, I think, by far the toughest schedule of anybody. So
no, and you're right. That's a great point. So if you look at the power rankings on Idaho Sports, and these aren't official that go into any sort of determination as who to makes it to state or anything like that. Sorry, I'm looking at. Never mind. I'm looking at something else. But where do these teams line up? I just think that I don't know. Even if you look at the point differential on the year for Eagle, they are right there. Right, they give up 45 points a game and they score 45 points a game.
Right.
They're right there. I feel like they could go either way. Middleton beat them once, and then they barely beat Middleton the second time. I just feel like, that would just be again. That's not a knock on Eagle. I don't know. I just feel like somebody's not going to make it that should. That's just those top 4. I don't think it's going to be those top 4. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you think Eagle is the team that is going to not be the one that advances? I think it's Hawaii, and I'll tell you why. Hawaii is a young team, right? They're all sophomores, juniors, underclassmen. They got close last year. They got to the play-in game and lost to Post Falls. But the big factor for Hawaii is their heralded transfer, Sid Rodriguez, transferred from Bora to Hawaii. She has been ruled ineligible for the postseason. So she was able to compete in the regular season. And then I don't know how the appeal process works. I know Canyon Ridge is kind of going through a similar thing in boys basketball, but that's with a 5th-year senior. So I don't know what the deal is there, but she is not available to play in the postseason. And that's a big piece of the puzzle now that's missing.
That is a big piece of the puzzle. That's you're right, Brandon. I wasn't aware of that, to be completely honest. So
yeah. And again, to me, it doesn't really make sense. Like, if you're going to let her play the regular season, then why not let her play the postseason? Like, I guess I don't understand that part of it. And maybe somebody,
yeah, interesting. Well, that's a story to watch, right? That if you're without one of your best players and you got a big district tournament coming up, you would think that maybe they've been playing with that in mind, and you get the best seed you can, and then you hope that you can fight through it without her. And then maybe you've been slowly game planning for that, right? Adjusting schemes and playing everybody that might be, in a situation where you wouldn't have or put some people in that will be there, right? And that's interesting.
And
so
and
you know
again,
what? I'll say that maybe you're right, Brandon. But I still, yeah. I mean, I think Timberline it might end up with one of those bids for sure. And then, gosh, yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and so if I had to pick a second, I would say maybe like I feel like Rocky is kind of, but Rocky did just beat Boise, so I don't know, man. It's going to be wild.
That's my thought. Everything is a big circle in the 5A SIC, and then there's teams that are right there on the outside of that circle that have just been slowly grabbing, and somebody's going to grab a hold and pull harder than anybody expects them to pull and get into that circle. And whether it's Mountain View, whether it's CUNA, Middleton, I don't know, but I think somebody is going to sneak their way in. And it could come down to who has the most, I'm not saying senior players, but senior player, right? One's the most experienced that have played in these type of big game environments, because you've got young teams. You've got young teams at Rocky. You've got young teams at Hawaii. You've got a very young team over at Middleton. You've got a young team at Mountain View. You've got young players that are going to be asked to step up this year. And who's going to step up? Is it going to be the players that have that experience? Is it going to be the young players that say, okay, it is time. It's district tournament time. It's time to step up. And are we going to see a big-time freshman step up and make some noise in the district tournament? We'll have to wait and see. But I tell you that the 5A SIC girls tournament might be the most up in the air, confusing, and quote, entertaining tournament that we will see in all the state of Idaho. I think the 2A WIC boys is going to be a ride, but I think the 5A SIC girls is going to be the most entertaining district tournament that we will see in Idaho this year.
Yes, for sure. And I'm trying to remember where I read that. I read it. It was either one of the newspapers or one of the news organizations online about the Sydney Rodriguez thing from Hawaii. And I can't find it now, but I definitely read it. I didn't imagine this. So if I'm wrong about this, somebody let me know, but I'm pretty sure that's the deal there at Hawaii. So to further your point, let's assume Coeur d'Alene and Lake City both get to state from the north, and Thunder and Rigby both get to state from the east. Those would be your top 4 seeds at state. Yeah. According to the Max Preps rankings right now, Coeur d'Alene would be 1, Thunder Ridge would be 2, Lake City would be 3, Rigby would be 4. Boise is only 5th right now in the Max Preps rankings, and they don't have an opportunity to climb any higher than that because it's only based on regular season games, and their regular season is over. So no matter what happens, right, the SIC is going to be behind the 8 ball a little bit in terms of seeding.
It's kind of crazy to think we could see a semifinal at the Idaho Center with not one team from the area. It's theoretically that sets up, that would be Boise would quote be a 5 seed, right?
Right.
And they would play a 4 seed. So nobody's going to play each other in the first round. Theoretically, it's all theoretical. But Boise at a 5 seed playing a 4, that would be a really good matchup in the first round. Whoever makes that draw.
Now let's say Rigby doesn't make it and Boise gets kicked up to the 4 seed. Right now, Hawaii is 6th, Post Falls is 7th, Timberline is 8th. If what I believe to be true and Hawaii doesn't make it and Post Falls doesn't make it, you're looking at Boise, Timberline in the opening round.
Yeah, you could get the top 2, potentially the top 2 teams facing off. Whew. And that's crazy. So before everything gets started, all right, Brandon, who are the 6 that come out?
I think it's Boise. I think it's Eagle. I think it's Rocky, Timberline. I like Mountain View. And I'll say Hawaii gets to a play-in game, but they don't make it to state.
All right.
That's my 6. And Middleton could definitely, I think whoever wins with that Middleton CUNA potential first round matchup, I mean, and even Capital, like I think Capital could like get on. I mean, that's the hard part, but those are the 6 that I'll pick. What do you think?
I think Boise, Rocky, Timberline, and then I Mountain View, Middleton, and then one of Eagle or Owyhee. But I'm going to say Owyhee and Eagle's out. But I think that's what I'm saying, and I don't know what order that is. I mean, I think Boise gets in. I think my buys or my direct tickets are Boise, Rocky, Timberline, and those are the only 3 I want to take right now, to be honest. And I know let the Owyhee and Eagle fans come at spears with me because I'm not dissing them. I don't know. It never, if you pulled out your NCAA tournament bracket and picked all the high seeds, you would not win. You would not win your bracket challenge. You won't.
And another factor to consider, Timberline is locked into that 5-seeded districts. So you're talking about possibly Timberline and Boise meeting in the semifinals.
Yeah.
At the district tournament. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting.
True.
It's fascinating. And Logan, we've spent like half an hour talking about this because there's so many different outcomes that are, but honestly, this is the story to me in girls basketball.
Yes. And with districts next week, I mean, it was a conversation, like you said, there's a lot of races that are wrapped up in District 3. And so it is what it is. This is the most urgent, so to say, and compelling storyline. And I mean, it's going to play itself out over the next, week or so when everything gets put into place. And maybe all our conversation was for naught and, nothing actually goes the way we thought it was. But it's always fun to play this game. I love Joe Lenardi, this bracketology and all this. Every week, I'm always checking it. Where's my team in the net rankings? Where are we going to go? And so it'll be a fun trip over the next few weeks with the 5A SIC tournament.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about then the other kind of intriguing league race. We're going to swing to the opposite side to boys basketball, and we're going to swing all the way down to the 1A D2 Long Pin Conference, where on Saturday night you had Council hosting Garden Valley in a game that basically for Council was going to be the kind of the de facto conference championship. Now they're not out of the woods yet. Council, they have to play Horseshoe Bend on Thursday, tomorrow night. And if Council wins that game, then the Long Pin is theirs. But it was an interesting game, Logan. It went to overtime. Council ends up winning 83-76 in overtime. I watched the final 2 minutes of regulation plus the entire overtime period. Man, Council, they attack. They attack in transition. They attack the basket driving. They have so many talented athletes. Wyatt Vining continues to be one of the more underrated players in the state. I was really impressed with Council in that win.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was probably a physical 2 minutes, just knowing how Garden Valley plays, that no one's going to take it easily inside against the Corns from Garden Valley. And I'm sure that was a nice physical affair between those two. Went to overtime, obviously. It's an interesting race, right? Because now all of a sudden Garden Valley, I think, has established themselves as the 2. But they had a squeaker, right, against Horseshoe Bend.
Yes.
And Horseshoe Bend beat Council, who everybody thought Cascade. Everybody thought this is Cascade's league, but all of a sudden they sit at 4th right now, right? And it'll be. I'm curious to see how that district tournament's going to go, because that's another one where something might happen that shouldn't happen, just because what we've seen Horseshoe Bend can do and how close that game with Garden Valley was. But those are 2 teams that I think, Garden Valley and Council, that could also make some noise come state tournament time if they're both there.
Yeah. So last night, Garden Valley hosted Horseshoe Bend and got out of there with a 71-68 win. So that was, close. And you're talking about Horseshoe Bend now. If they had won that game against Garden Valley, and let's say they won this game coming up against Council, all of a sudden you got chaos in the league standings. Because right now Council's 8-0, Garden Valley is 7-2. Horseshoe Bend is 5-3. So to me, all three of those are really close, really tight.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Is it 2 bids or 1.5?
2
to state. So there's 2 bids, and I think Council's going to get one of them for sure. In one way, I think if Council loses, they don't lose again, right? That if they were to get upset, that they would come out the back door and get in. But I think the only team, right now, Garden Valley's been the only one to really kind of be right there. Obviously went to overtime, but with the way Horseshoe Bend has played, it could, they could sneak in. Garden Valley played earlier in the season. They lost to Camas County by a good amount. And that's a whole nother conversation, what's going on in that league over there with them and Richfield. We saw, a couple of years ago, Cascade, right? They came in behind Garden Valley and got that second bid to state. This was back 3 years ago, is when Lakeside won the tournament. But Cascade gets in. They beat Cary in the first round, who I don't think anybody had that coming. And then they beat North Gym in the second round, and they go all the way to the state championship. And I think that there's a lot better basketball that is played in the long pin than I think people realize, just from having seen a lot of long pin games over my time here broadcasting some of their teams. And I would like one of those teams, that second team outside of Council in a state tournament to win a game or two.
Yeah. So again, we'll play the what if here. Let's say it's Garden Valley and Council that get to state. At the current Max Preps rankings, and this could change a little more. It's not as static, or it's a little more static than the girls' rankings. Right now, Richfield and Camas County, those two teams that are battling in District 4 for one bid, they're the top 2 teams in the Max Preps rankings. So one of them will be the 1 seed. Then you've got Rockland at 2, Kendrick at 3, Water Springs, if they make it, would be 4. Council would be the 5 seed. Garden Valley would be the 6. So they'd be on opposite sides. You're looking at Council and Water Springs in the opening round. I think I'd actually like Council there.
Give me Council. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'd have Garden Valley taking on Kendrick. Those are 2 high octane offenses.
Man, that would be yikes. That would be fun. Hey, I'm dibs. I want that tournament. That one sounds like man, that's a good one. That's just a shame. I know this is not our Prepcast Magic Valley, but the 1 and the 2, one of them's not going.
Yep.
And have they lost to anybody at their level that's out? I don't know. I am not deep into Richfield basketball, but
so Richfield is 12-1. Their only loss was to Camas County. They split. They each won at the opponent's gym. So Camas County won at Richfield, and Richfield won at Camas. Believe it or not. Camas County is 9-3, or excuse me, they're 11-3 on the season, but they've scheduled pretty aggressively. They lost to Cary by 8. That's a really good 1A D1 team. They lost to Richfield, of course, by 5. And then they lost to Valley, which is another good 1A D1 team by only 6.
So they have not lost to a 1A D2 school besides
each other.
Yes. One of them. Yeah.
And in preparation for what's going to be a sprint to the finish, both Camas County and Richfield have scheduled road trips to Rockland here over the final 3 weeks of the season. They're both going to go to Rockland for non-conference games. So that'll be interesting as well.
And that was that scheduled now, or is that new?
No, that was originally scheduled.
Oh, that's smart. I think, it doesn't hurt anybody, right? It's, the one, that you're looking at a potential state championship match preview, which very well could be the case with those 2.
Yeah.
Those 3. So one, it's just a shame. Some of it is I don't know what the answer is. I know everybody else seems to know what the answer is, and I don't know. I don't know what it is, because sometimes sometimes it works out the way that it should. Whether or not people think it does, in these one bid leagues, so many. I'm going to go back, and I'm not dissing anybody in Pocatello or anything, but people thought that whole Pocatello Century Preston ordeal, and Pokey got to the championship and got run out of the gym by.
But I mean, that was a historically great Hillcrest team.
But Hillcrest struggled with Middleton the day before, and so I'm like, that's my thing, is that sometimes usually at the end of the day, the teams that should be there are there. Usually, I would say 99% of the time. Now, but this year, I don't know what to think with the 1A D2, because if it really is, like, let's just say both of these teams beat Rockland by 20 points, then I think there's an issue. So I'm excited to see how that one. Again, this is totally not Treasure Valley related, but it's good if you're an Idaho sports fan. It's a good conversation. That is a great. I'm excited to see how those play out, because I would like to see how those two, because Rockland won it last year and is a great candidate to potentially go back. And if they, if Rockland beats one by a lot, loses to another, whatever, maybe we have a little bit of a measuring stick, right? But Camas County did beat Garden Valley by like 21 points. So we do know that our second honcho over here got taken to the woodshed by one of theirs. So, I curious to see how that would translate to a Camas County versus Council game. I don't know. And we might not get to see it.
Right. We may not. I will say, and then we'll wrap up the show here, but I think this is a good broader conversation to have. My only experience is where I grew up in Montana, right? And in Montana, when it comes to the postseason, it's all tournaments. So the long pin conference tournament, hey, we're going to play at McCall High School Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you're coming to play in a true tournament. It's not play a game Tuesday, take 3 days off, play again on Saturday. It's not this long drawn out thing.
Yeah.
It's, hey, we're going to show up for 3 days or 4, depending on the size of the league. We're going to battle it out. And that to me is a better run up to like what state's going to be like.
Oh yeah.
Personally. And then from there, so that's what they do at the district level. And then from there, they have a second weekend of pre-state tournaments. It's called the divisional tournaments. So you would have, and this used to be a thing. I feel like, like districts 4, 5, and 6 all used to get together for like a divisional tournament, like in the 90s. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this in Idaho, but I don't know. Would it be realistic to say, okay, districts 1, 2, and 3 now are going to play a divisional tournament. Each league gets 2 teams from districts, and then 2 of the districts get a third team, and that rotates. And then the best 4 from that divisional tournament move on, and same for districts 4, 5, and 6. Then you have multiple opportunities to play your way in. If you're, I don't know. What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, no, I think I like that setup. I've said it. So I grew up in North Carolina. So, it's different. It's a 64 team NCAA tournament type thing where you're traveling to places, and then they get down to the Final Four, and they'll play it, at one of the, at Duke, Carolina, or NC State, or Wake Forest, whoever has it that year, and they'll do the Final Four there. They'll do like a Friday, Saturday type thing. But I love how we have it, how we have state tournament, bam, bam, bam. It is an event. I think it is one of the best events in the state of Idaho. I think the state tournament is an exciting time for everybody. And everybody gets a lot out of it. And I think it would benefit the schools, the players, everything, to have that environment before the state environment. So I'm for it. Again, I have no idea if that's the answer or logistically how that works, and I feel like that conversation with a lot of people, a lot of people seem to know all the answers, right? And I don't know, but it seems like it would be right on the surface that would be a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, hypothetically, then you would have like let's say for 1A D2 boys basketball. Okay, you have your district tournaments, and then from there you would move to a divisional round. Let's say 1, 2, and 3 were all together. You'd have like, Clark Fork and Mullen probably from District 1, Kendrick and Deary from District 2, Council and Garden Valley from District 3, and then let's say the white Districts 2 and 3 get a third team. So Horseshoe Bend gets to go to divisionals, and I don't know, Nez Perce or whatever gets to go. Then you're looking at, okay, 4 teams from this pool of 8 get to advance, and maybe only Council makes it, or like maybe Clark Fork, where they get to go to state now for winning their district. Maybe they don't make it out of divisionals because they came from your district, right?
And again, like I said, I'm sure that there would be people that would scream at you, Brandon, for saying that's not logical. How can we do that? Money, money, money. Okay, get it. But that makes sense, right? Where the 4 best teams in, quote, this half of the state are going to go. You play through your conference, you play through another group, and then you all come together. I think it's a smart idea. I don't know. I feel like that's a great conversation to have. And I feel like that's a problem with everybody. Not with sports thing. This is just a American population in general. We can't have a conversation without screaming at each other about why we're right and why you're wrong. And let's just sit down and talk about it, like listen to people's ideas. And I don't know where that conversation happens. I don't know who has it, but I would love to just listen in on it. And, that's a great idea to bring up. And maybe there's drawbacks of it. Let's hear them. Why is that? But on the surface, it seems like that would be a very equitable way, right? Because we just talked about it, that a team from the Magic Valley that is potentially the number 2 team in the state is not going to go. Now, if they played in one of those divisional rounds with Eastern Idaho against, Water Springs, do I think that Camas County or Richfield would beat Water Springs? Probably. Yeah, I do. Do I think Camas County obviously could beat Garden Valley? Yeah, they already did it. It just seems like an equitable way to do it. So I hadn't heard that frame of mind with it because I think, people say expand the tournament. That's what they want. And then you end up getting, you might get some teams in there that I feel like that with the NFL, right? This year that there was teams that shouldn't have been there that, they're fighting to find a team barely over 500 and sometimes expand the NBA, right? They expanded their tournament. Now they've got teams with losing records.
These guys almost made the playoffs and they had no business being anywhere near the playoff conversation. I'm pointing to my Green Bay Packers coffee mug. So
well, my Panthers almost made it, but that's just because the NFC South was atrocious this year.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like the NBA expanded their conference or their playoffs, right? So like the 7 and 8 now play the 9 and 10 and this horrendous battle that the Hornets always find themselves in and get blown out every year. And just I have this problem with my teams. Be good or be bad. Don't be in the middle. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of my teams being in the middle. Get a good draft pick or make the playoffs, but don't be right on the edge. But, I don't think it adds anything. I don't think it adds anything to bring in more people. Let's make sure the right 8 are there. I think that's in a divisional setup. I guess you could deem it as expanding the playoff, but I think it's an appendage more, and it just ensures that the correct 8 get to be in that state tournament environment.
Yeah, I don't know. Good food for thought, at least. Yeah. And that's just, my perspective coming from Montana, a state that's like Idaho, right? It's kind of far flung and really spread out. And so that's kind of how they do it. So anyways, that is another topic for another day. All I know is
it would be a good one. It would be a fun topic to talk about, as long as people aren't screaming at each other. It's like, that won't work. That hurts my team, but just what can be done? Not that anything needs to be, but is there a better way? So
I don't know. We'll table that discussion for another day. Postseason basketball is here. Again, friendly reminder, district brackets will be on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. You can follow every district tournament from every classification level. We'll update the brackets every night as the tournaments get underway, starting Thursday with that thriller in Du Bois. So we can't wait. Logan, as always, thanks for hopping on and doing this. Thanks for everybody tuning in, and we will see you next time on another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.